Hi there. This interview is about one of the most uncomfortable situations in production. All your dashboards are green, no alerts are firing, but users are angry, support tickets are piling up, and revenue is taking a hit. This is a realistic DevOps interview simulation focused on how you think when signals disagree with reality. I want you to pause the video after each question and answer it out loud before you hear a sample response. That is how you actually practice. If this style helps you think more clearly under pressure, subscribe so you do not miss the next interview. Let's start simple. Tell me about a time when users reported a problem, but your monitoring showed everything was healthy. A strong answer here usually starts with acknowledging the discomfort. Something like, when users complain but metrics are green, my assumption is not that users are wrong, but that my observability is incomplete. In one case, error rates and CPU looked fine, but response times had quietly doubled during peak hours. I validated the user reports by reproducing the issue myself, then expanded monitoring around latency percentiles and downstream dependencies. The key point is showing humility, curiosity, and a bias toward verifying reality instead of trusting dashboards blindly. Next question. How do you usually react when you are confident the system is healthy, but multiple users say it is broken? A strong candidate explains emotional control first. I slow myself down and avoid being defensive. I treat user reports as signals, not noise. I look for patterns in who is affected, when it happens, and what action triggers it. Even if the issue turns out not to be a system bug, that process usually reveals either a gap in monitoring, a UX problem, or an expectation mismatch. The important part is showing respect for user experience, not just system metrics. Another one. Describe a situation where you initially chased the wrong signal in production. What did you learn? A solid answer admits mistakes comfortably. For example, I once focused on database performance because latency increased, but the real issue was a client-side timeout introduced by a front-end change. I learned to always validate the full request path before deep diving into one layer. That experience made me more systematic and less reactive during incidents. One more. How do you communicate during incidents when you are not yet sure what is wrong? A strong response emphasizes transparency without panic. I usually say what we know, what we do not know, and what we are doing next. I avoid guessing root causes early. That builds trust and keeps stakeholders aligned while we investigate. Now let's move into technical thinking. Everything is green. CPU is fine. Memory is stable. Error rates are low. Users complain the app feels slow. Where do you look first and why? A strong answer does not jump straight to one tool. I start by questioning what green actually means. I look at latency, especially P95 and P99, not just averages. I check client-side timing if available, load balancer response times, and downstream service calls. Slowness often hides in tail latency or external dependencies that are not part of core error metrics. The reasoning matters more than the exact tools you name. Next scenario. What are common reasons monitoring shows green while users experience failures? A thoughtful answer might mention things like synthetic checks that do not reflect real user behavior, alerts based on averages instead of percentiles, cached paths that hide slow, uncatched requests, regional issues affecting only a subset of users, or retries masking failures. What matters is explaining how systems can technically be up while practically unusable. Another question, how would you prove or disprove that this is a front-end or client-side problem? A strong candidate talks about correlation. I would compare back-end latency with browser timing metrics, check network errors, review recent front-end releases, and test the app under similar conditions as affected users. If back-end metrics look clean but users still struggle, that mismatch itself is a clue. The answer should show structured elimination, not guesswork. Let's go one level deeper. If alerts are based on error rates, how could retries be hiding a real issue? A solid explanation sounds like this. Retries can turn failures into successes from a metrics perspective while increasing latency and load. Users feel slowness. but error rates stay low. Over time, retries can even amplify pressure on downstream systems. This is why latency, saturation, and retry metrics matter just as much as raw success rates. Final question for this section. What is one metric you wish teams paid more attention to in situations like this? A strong answer might pick latency percentiles, queue depth, saturation, or even user journey success rates. The important thing is explaining why that metric reflects user experience better than traditional health checks. Pause here. Answer these out loud, then continue when you are ready. Let's keep going. Users say the app feels slow, but back-end latency metrics look normal. Walk me through how you would validate whether this is a network or routing issue. A strong answer usually starts outside the application itself. I would look at where users are connecting from and whether there are regional patterns. If users in one geography complain more, I would check DNS resolution times, CDN behavior, and load balancer routing. I would compare edge latency to origin latency. If the origin looks healthy, but edge response times spike, that points toward networking or routing rather than app logic. I would also look for recent changes in DNS, TLS, or traffic policies. The goal is to narrow the problem space before deep diving. Next scenario, everything is green internally, but support reports that only logged-in users are affected. Anonymous users are fine. How does that change your investigation? This is where reasoning really matters. If anonymous users are fine, I immediately suspect something that only happens after authentication. That could be session storage, token validation, database calls tied to user profiles, or feature flags enabled only for logged-in users. I would trace a full request path for both cases and compare timing step by step. The key is comparing two similar flows and finding the divergence point instead of guessing. Another one. How can caching make systems look healthy while users are unhappy? A strong candidate explains that caches can mask problems. If cached responses are fast, average latency looks great. But cache misses might be slow or failing. If only a subset of users trigger cache misses, their experience degrades while metrics stay green. I would look at cache hit ratios, latency for misses, and eviction patterns. The trade-off here is that caching improves performance overall, but it can hide pain at the edges unless you monitor it intentionally. Let's raise the difficulty. You discover retries are hiding errors and increasing latency. Do you disable retries immediately? A mature answer shows restraint. I would not blindly turn retries off in production without understanding impact. Retries exist for a reason. I would first reduce retry counts or back off aggressiveness and observe behavior. I would also look at the downstream service health. Sometimes retries are compensating for transient issues that need fixing at the source. The decision depends on blast radius, user impact, and recovery options. This shows judgment, not just technical knowledge. Next question. How do you use traces when metrics and logs are not giving clear answers? A strong explanation sounds practical. Traces help me see the full request journey across services. I look for where time is actually spent, not where I assume it is spent. I pay attention to long-tail traces rather than averages. Tracing often reveals unexpected dependencies, slow external calls, or contention points that metrics alone cannot show. The trade-off is cost and overhead, so I focus tracing where uncertainty is highest. Another scenario. Users report intermittent failures that you cannot reproduce internally. What is your next move? A good answer accepts uncertainty. I would try to reproduce the issue under conditions closer to real users. That might mean testing from different regions, networks, or devices. I would increase temporary logging or sampling around suspected paths, but carefully to avoid overload. I would also correlate reports with deployment times, traffic spikes, or third-party incidents. The goal is to create visibility where none exists yet. Final question for this section. At what point do you stop looking at dashboards and start talking to people? A strong candidate says sooner than most teams do. I talk to support, product, and sometimes even users early. They often describe patterns dashboards do not capture. Technical signals matter, but human context often accelerates diagnosis. Balancing both is what separates good operators from great ones. Pause here. Answer these out loud. Sit with the uncertainty, then continue when you are ready. Pressure and judgment. Questions. Let's shift gears. Imagine it is peak business hours. Executives are in the incident channel. Users are angry on social media. All dashboards are green. You have no clear technical signal yet. What do you do in the first 10 minutes? A strong answer shows calm, not panic. I would acknowledge uncertainty out loud and set expectations immediately. I would assign someone to user impact and timelines, someone to technical investigation, and someone to communications. Even without answers, structure reduces chaos. I would resist the urge to change anything blindly. The risk of making things worse is high when signals are unclear. The first 10 minutes are about control, not heroics. Next scenario. Product leadership asks you to roll back the last release because users are angry, but you have no evidence the release caused the issue. Do you comply? A mature response balances trust and evidence. I would explain the current data and the risks of rolling back without confirmation. If the rollback is low risk and fast, I might do it to restore confidence while continuing investigation. If rollback carries significant risk, I would push back respectfully and suggest a parallel path. The key is making the decision explicit and documented, not emotional or defensive. Another one. Support reports that some users say the app feels broken, but others say it is fine. Metrics still look healthy. Do you declare an incident? A strong candidate does not rely only on dashboards. I would treat this as a potential incident even if severity is unclear. I might start with a lower severity classification but activate incident discipline. That includes clear ownership, regular updates, and focused investigation. Declaring early is cheaper than reacting late. The risk of overreacting is usually lower than the risk of ignoring real user pain. Let's increase pressure. You identify a possible fix, but it involves disabling a feature used by a small group of users. Keeping it enabled continues to degrade experience for many. What do you choose? A thoughtful answer weighs impact, not perfection. I would likely disable the feature if it reduces overall harm and is reversible. I would communicate clearly who is affected and why the decision is temporary. This shows prioritization under uncertainty. Production decisions are rarely perfect. They are about reducing damage while buying time to fix the root cause. Final pressure question. After the incident, leadership asks why monitoring did not catch this earlier. How do you respond without blaming tools or people? A strong response is honest and constructive. I would explain that monitoring reflected system health, not user experience. I would frame it as a learning opportunity, not a failure. I would propose specific improvements such as user-focused metrics, better tracing, or synthetic checks. The goal is trust and progress, not defense. Take a breath here. These questions are hard because there is no single right answer. What matters is how you think, how you communicate, and how you manage risk when information is incomplete. If you made it this far, pause for a moment. Think about which question felt the most uncomfortable. That discomfort is exactly what real production incidents feel like. Green dashboards do not always mean happy users. Experience lives at the edges, not just in charts. If you are preparing for DevOps, SRE, or platform interviews, practice answering these out loud, not perfectly, honestly. That is what interviewers listen for. Tell me in the comments which question challenged you the most and how you would handle it in a real incident. If this kind of interview simulation helps you think more clearly under pressure, subscribe so you do not miss the next one. I will see you in the next interview.